So this question gives us a large table, and we are told that f of x times g of x is h of x. So I want to write that down, and our goal is to find h prime of -1. How are we going to do that? Again, h of x is f of x times g of x. We want to get h prime of x, which is the derivative with respect to x of f of x times g of x, and that is going to require us to use the product rule. So u is f of x, v is g of x, u prime is f prime of x, v prime is g prime of x. What is our product rule? The derivative of uv is u prime v plus uv prime. So that'll give me h prime of x, u prime v, so f prime of x times g of x, plus uv prime plus f of x times g prime of x. What is the question asking me to find? I need to find h prime of -1. So what is h prime of -1? F prime of -1 times g of -1 plus f of -1 times g prime of -1 using that rule. So let me quickly show you that again. Right, h prime of x, u prime v, f prime of x, g of x, plus u, f of x, g prime. Then h prime of -1 just requires me to plug -1 in for all of the x values. So going back to the table, what do we know? Well, I need f prime of -1. What is f prime of -1? F prime of -1, here's -1, f prime appears to be -10. G of -1 is here. G of -1 appears to be -12. Plus f of -1. F of -1 appears to be 8 times g prime of -1. What is g prime of -1? G prime of -1, also -12. So making all those substitutions, as I will show you on the paper, f prime of -1 is -10, g of -1, -12, f of -1, 8, g prime of -1, -12. So what does that make h prime of -1? -10 times -12 is 120. 8 times -12 is -96. So what does that make h prime of -1? What will that be? 120 plus -96 gives me 24. Gives me 24. So here we have k of x, which is g of 4x. We want to use a table to determine k prime of 1. So what is k prime of x? That is the derivative with respect to x of g of 4x. The derivative of g of something is g prime of that something times the derivative of the something. So g prime of 4x times the derivative of 4x. So what is that going to become? K prime of x, again, g prime of 4x times the derivative of 4x, which is 4. So we get k prime of x is 4 times g prime of 4x. But I want k prime of 1. So if that's the case, we're going to replace the x's with 1. What is k prime of 1? 4 times g prime of 4 times 1. So k prime of 1 is 4 times g prime of 4. 4 times g prime of 4. So let's go back to our table and let's find out what g prime of 4 is and make our substitution. What do we have? There's 4 What is g prime of 4? It looks like g prime of 4 is negative 0.75. So k prime is 4 times negative 0.75. That indeed is our, that's 4, that's g prime of 4, just doing a second check. So now we're here, now we're at k prime of 1 equals 4 times negative 0.75. 4 times negative 3/4 should be easy enough for us to do to get negative 3. So k prime of 1 is negative 3. Okay, let's see what we're going to do next. So here we have p of x is f circle g of x. We want to determine p prime of 2. So what is p prime of x? That is the derivative with respect to x of f circle g of x. What does that mean? What does f circle g of x mean? P prime of x is the derivative with respect to x of f of g of x. And how do we do that? P prime of x is the derivative of f of something. What's the derivative of f of something? That's f prime, the derivative, f prime of something times the derivative of the something. What is my something this time? My something is g of x. So it's the derivative with respect to x of f of g of x becomes f prime of g of x times the derivative with respect to x of g of x. So where does that put me then? P prime of x is what? F prime of g of x times the derivative with respect to x of g of x, which is g prime of x. Okay. And then the question asks me to find p prime of 2. So replacing all of the x's with 2's, p prime of 2 equals f prime of g of 2 times g prime of 2. So we're going to look at the table to see what those values are. So let's do that. I need g of 2, I need g prime of 2. What is g of 2? G of 2 appears to be 6. So f prime of 6 times g prime of 2. What is g prime of 2? G prime of 2 appears to be negative 3. So now we're here after that substitution, right? I have p prime of 2 is f prime of 6 times negative 3, but I need to find out what f prime of 6 is from the table. So looking back at our table, what is f prime of 6? There's 6. What is f prime of 6? It looks like it's 32. F prime of 6 looks like it's 32. So f prime of 6 is 32. Multiply that by negative 3. What does that give me for my answer? 32 times negative 3 is, of course, negative 96. Here we have q of x, which is g circle f of x, and we want to use a table to find q prime of 2. So find q prime of x then is the derivative with respect to x of g circle f of x. So what does g circle f mean? The derivative with respect to x of g of f of x. And then what is the derivative of g of something? Is the derivative with respect to x of g of something, which would be g prime of something times the derivative of the something. That's how this is going to work. What is my something here? Again, my something is f of x, so q prime of x is the derivative of g of f of x. That's how it's defined. Then we have, so that's g prime of f of x times the derivative with respect to x of f of x. G prime of f of x times the derivative with respect to x of f of x. So what do we get for q prime of x then? G prime of f of x times the derivative with respect to x of f of x, which is f prime of x. So what I want is I want q prime of 2 is g prime of f of 2 times f prime of 2. And then I need to go to my table to find out what these values are. So I need to find f of 2, I need to find f prime of 2. Let's look at the table. What is f of 2? F of 2 appears to be 5. Looking here, f of 2 appears to be 5. So if f of 2 is 5, this will give me g prime of 5 times what is f prime of 2? Again, going back to the table. What is f prime of 2? F prime of 2 appears to be 8. F prime of 2 appears to be 8. Then I need to figure out what is g prime of 5. What is g prime of 5? So here's 5. What is g prime of 5? Looks like negative 0.48. Negative 0.48 appears to be g prime of 5. Negative 0.48 times 8 appears to be q prime of 2. So what does that equal? Let's get our calculator. Negative 0.48 times 8. And I get negative 3.84.